All right, today I'm going to show you how to change the belt and replace the clutches on a Polaris Trail Boss ATV. And this happens to be a four-wheel drive. Two-wheel drives are going to be identical to this. A lot of people think you have to pull this rear fender. You don't have to. You do have to pull the 3 bolts loose that are down here by the left heel. And there's 3 bolts. A lot of times they're a little bit of a challenge to get out. They've got kind of a square backing to them, so you got to keep pressure, push back on them. Sometimes they're Phillips screws, and then this one happens to be an 11mm nut on the back side. I've already loosened these up because, like I said, they can be a challenge. Next thing, you're going to have a Phillips screws. Sometimes they're 3/8 bolts all the way around this clutch cover, and then you've got a 3/8 bolt up here on the air duct. Two of those bolts. I'm going to pull those off right now. And there's 2 of them there. You can just slide this out. Now, if you have this cover on the fuel tank, you don't have to take that off of there, but you will just slide this forward. If it comes out, you can just take it out just like that. Next thing you're going to do, you're going to take and you're going to pull this fender out about as far as you can. You're not going to cause damage by doing this to the fender, and that's just going to allow you to get into this clutch cover without having to pull that rear fender. You're going to grab an impact or a screwdriver, whatever you need to pull this cover here. And there's probably 7 of these bolts. I've already taken a handful of them out just to speed this video up. Then we've got one back here just sitting there. So now it's time to take the clutch cover off to get to that belt. And you take and lift this this fender up just like that, and you kind of work this cover out just like that. You're going to set that fender aside here. Make sure there's no water in here. There's a seal in behind this backing plate here that you want to make sure is there and in good condition. And then we can go ahead and replace that belt. You can feel behind here your clutches to make sure there's no major grooving, make sure there's no issues. You can slide your clutch back and forth to make sure these buttons are in good condition. If they need replaced, I'll show you how to pull this clutch. If all you're doing is replacing the belt, then what I do is take our secondary clutch, which is back here, and then I take the belt and kind of pry it up onto the secondary clutch and then spin this clutch backwards. And it takes a couple turns around, and it's kind of a challenge to get off, but once it starts coming off just like that, you can take and twist it the rest of the way off, just like that. So now we've got our belt off there. Now if we're going back on with this belt, you can do the same thing. Slide it on the front side. I take and I start it on the top of this rear clutch here and stick it as far down into that groove as you can, and then just spin it on. It'll kind of start folding that belt over, and you can actually just take and keep pushing it down till you want to make sure that you don't get your finger in here. That does not feel good. And then once it gets tight enough, you can start and actually spin both clutches. Now you have your belt on, it's ready to go. Make sure that belt's going in the right direction if it is directional. Now to pull this clutch, if you're going to replace the belt and you want to inspect this clutch a little bit better, check these weights, check these buttons, go ahead and grab a 16mm impact wrench here. And I like to use an impact driver like this because it turns that motor over as well. If you've got an impact driver, it just spins it off really quick. And this is a regular threaded bolt, so it's not reverse threaded. So we've got that there. Now we have the Polaris clutch puller, which looks like this here. And I've got my socket that's actually stuck on there. And you take and you slide that puller in and you spin it just like you'd regularly spin a bolt in there, all the way in. And what that's doing is pushing against the crankshaft, and that's actually going to push this clutch off. So spin it just like that. Now a lot of times what happens is you'll get this puller pushed all the way in. It's not actually popping this clutch off. And so what I do is take my socket off here, and then with my hammer I'll take and I'll just tap 1 time, 2 times onto the end of this puller. A lot of times that'll kind of bounce that clutch right off of there. Now you can just take it off, and then you can get to and inspect this clutch. You can see there we've got our weights here, and then we've got our buttons here, and that's what I was talking about. Buttons on each side there, and then our weights right in the middle. So you want to inspect that, make sure it's good. Also inspect these sheaves to make sure that they're not grooved and no wear. If you ride at one speed, a lot of times if you're spraying weeds or just going one certain speed, a lot of times wherever that speed is on your clutch, that'll get grooved. You want to make sure that that if it is grooved, you want to replace your clutch sheaves as well as your belt. Otherwise, you're just going to start going through belts like crazy. Now to get this back on, if this back clutch wasn't removed, if the secondary clutch wasn't removed, you can leave your belt like that. you can take this front clutch here, slide it over top, and then I kind of turn it just like that to get that to line up with your crankshaft. I guess I got to pull this puller out of here. To get them back on, then just take and turn it like that to get it lined up with the crank into that proper position there, and then just slide it on. Kind of twist it forward just like that. Now take your larger nut there, make sure you've got your plastic spacer, your larger washer there, and then your locker washer there. Slide that on, make sure that plastic bushing fits right into place there. 15 millimeter, I like to use Loctite on those and tighten it up just like that. Now to get your cover on, just pull your fender back out, slide your cover in underneath there. Make sure you're not caught on any wires back here by your starter drive, and then take your screws and put them in all the way around. Don't forget then to put your air duct in there, otherwise you're going to be getting all kinds of debris in there, and make sure that that boot is not pinched, otherwise you'll cause some issues there. So slide that boot on there, and then if you do, sometimes these are zip ties, sometimes they're clamped on there, sometimes the boots are big enough to where you don't actually have to do anything with them. And then make sure you get these 3/8 bolts back in there. You can put your seat back on. Like I said, you don't actually have to pull this cover to do this project. That we just had it off for a separate video. So that is replacing the clutch and the belt on a Trail Boss 250. If you have more questions about this, or you've got questions about something else, make sure and let me know. Make sure and like and subscribe to this video. If it's been helpful, please share it with your friends. And like I said, leave comments below if you have them. Thanks a lot for watching.